So listen. I'm talking to my cousin friend Joyce, right? I said, hey, listen, you know anyone you can hook me up with? She says, yeah. Hooks me up with her friend, right? And let me tell you, she is fine. I'm talking 10 out of 10. Only problem is she's got 3 teeth. That's right, 3. 2 on the bottom, 1 on top. I don't even know how that happens. The one on the top is directly centered in the middle. It should at least be off-centered to the left or the right, just slightly. No, but the bottom left tooth, yeah. Let's talk about the bottom left is chipped. The bottom right, it's got a cavity. Yeah, I know. It doesn't stop there though. Bruh, listen. I immediately called Naira, Cheryl, and Rhonda. Rhonda says, well, how's her personality? I said, her personality's great. I said, okay. Cheryl says, how's her body? I said, the body is fine. Naira says, how's her character and personality again? I said, it is great. Then I check my phone. Wait, no, I'm getting it. I check my phone, and the phone, it's a text message from Joyce. She says, well, at least you'll be saving. What? Saving on what? The text message. I'm waiting. She responds, you'll at least save on toothpaste and floss. What? Anyways, so, hi. Hello. Okay. Today we are talking about CSS selectors. That's right. CSS selectors is a way for you to manipulate and target the actual elements within HTML. Hey, stay out the shot. Okay. Oh, and yes, I have my brand new shades. Thank you, Angie. Love ya. All right, so this is what we got. CSS selectors. Let's make sure we have our Visual Studio Code open up. And without further ado, let's edit the HTML markup with our CSS. Okay. All right. Sounds like a plan. All right. Let's go on ahead. Make sure you have Visual Studio Code opened up. And we all know that I do. You also may notice some new directories there. That's just for my trying to keep track of all of these things that we're going to be working on. Let's go on ahead and open up an actual new file. And we're going to call that new file CSS, since we're working on CSS, selectors.html. That's going to be where we're going to put our actual HTML markup. All right, and sometimes you'll hear me refer to the markup and HTML. You'll hear me say that interchangeably, but they're basically the same. And we're also going to add, well, let's put a bare bones template here. There we go. And the title of this is going to be CSS Selectors. And we're also going to add a new file here, which is going to be our CSS file. So, I just right clicked and gonna do new, or you can of course click on the new file button, and let's add our CSS file. We're gonna call it the same thing. However, we're gonna make sure that ends with a .css extension. And now we can close this. Well, actually, let's keep it open there and move our CSS file to the right. And we're doing that by right clicking on the tab. And I'm going to say split to the right, and then we're going to close the one here. Okay, and we're also going to, using our live server extension, we're going to right click on our HTML file and open with live server. That's going to open up a browser so we can actually run this locally. And of course, it's going to allow us to make sure we don't have to keep hitting the refresh button. There we go. Now we can close this by hitting the Explorer double documents. And close that there. And just to make sure that our file is attached to the actual page, let's add an actual file here. Let's start with the selector. But actually, I know that's not going to work because we need to at least connect the CSS file with the HTML file. So let me move this over just a little bit more. There we go. And let's link our CSS selectors.css file by just typing link and enter. And the href is going to be, we need the destination of where our CSS underscore selectors file is. So our CSS file is where? It is here. All right, and Visual Studio Code automatically allows, actually shows it here. It's not the file we're working on, it's the one here, so .css. So now that we have linked the CSS file to our HTML page, now let's go over here and create a quick rule just to test it. So I'll use the selector of the body. I'll open up the rule with the open curly brackets, and I'll just say background blue. And we notice right away that the actual background is then changed to blue. So let's go on ahead, let's get rid of that. All right, because we're just not going to use that one, but we are going to that was just to pretty much make sure that it is actually working. All right, let's get some actual markup on the screen. And in order to do that, we are going to go into the body. Most of the markup, this HTML is going to be relatively boring, but that's quite all right because we need something to actually target. So let's do an H1, and I'm going to do something a little different here. So H1, and within that H1, we're going to add a body, or actually an ID of top. Okay, so if you notice what I did there is I just typed H1, the tic-tac-toe sign or the hashtag or the pound top, and I'm going to hit enter. So that automatically gives me an ID of top, and I'm just going to say this ID is going to be playing basketball. Basketball. There we go. So we now have the playing basketball. All right, and below that, we're going to have a paragraph with an ID of intro. Okay, and let's put some text here. Let's see. Here are a few groovy things about basketball. Okay, and I'm going to select that a few times and paste it, just so we get some additional text here for our paragraph. And you'll notice that Live Server is updating that and placing it within the browser to the left. All right, let me move this over a little bit more so we can see what else is there. All right, so we have our H1, good. We have a paragraph, great. Let's add an H2 below that. And we're going to call that just preseason. Okay, nothing special here, just bare bones markups, the things that we have seen in the previous lessons, in the previous tutorials. And let's add a UL with an LI and an A tag in there as well. All right. Good, 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 good. And let's see, this is really not going to go anywhere, but we can just, you know what, let's just put, these links are not going to go anywhere. So let's just put we'll just put the hashtag in there, but we will make it seem like it's going somewhere. So the first thing we'll put is conditioning. Conditioning, good. And let's copy that. Good, we got our first link over there, that's great. Copy that a few times just so we can play with something here. We're going to add what's important for preseason. Conditioning, nutrition, always a big thing. That's definitely key. Dribbling, that is super duper big. What else? Gotta cover your shooting. You know, you can try to D me up, but I'll be shooting over you at all times. So shooting form. And let's just do one more. What else is important? What? Of course, your defense. Hello. Because my defense is super tight. All right, so we've got some conditioning, nutrition, dribbling, shooting form, and defense. Great. And we're gonna need we're just gonna add a little more, just a little more, and then we'll actually get to the CSS file and actually start selecting some of this stuff. So let's add a paragraph here. We'll give it a class of note. Okay, and it's gonna be created by me, of course. All right, and let's also we'll add a fake email here. Let's see. Good, and it's, where's that gonna go to? Mail to fake address. at gmail.com. And I probably could have just placed this in the comments so we can, or in the more information below, just so you can copy it. But since this is introductory, it's always good to just kind of follow along. Let's see, what is this going to look like? Subscriber mail. Okay, created by me and subscriber mail. Good. And let's go below that. I think that'll work for that. And let's just add a little bit more. We'll add a span tag here with a class. Let's see, with a class of, do we need anything there? Note. There we go. And what we can put in that is, it's just some simple text. An additional line. Good. This is trying to get a number of HTML elements in there. We'll add a paragraph with a span. And we'll just say hi there. It's not going to look the prettiest. We'll do another href with a link to go back up to the ID of top. So if you click on that, you should go back to the top of the page, back to the top. And last but not least, what we will do is also within this paragraph, we will add, let's add a couple of hrefs here. Couple of links that will go nowhere. Let's see, this one, we're going to try to make this adjacent to span element. And I'm just going to copy that. And we'll try to make sense of all of this once we get to the CSS file. All right, so we have some stuff here. This is good. This is good. Playing basketball, paragraph, preseason, some conditional lists here that you'll actually need for preseason. All right, we have a mail to, an additional line span, and you know what? Now let's get over to the CSS and let's select this stuff. So the first thing we're going to work on is a universal selector. The universal selector looks just like this, and it's pretty much just an asterisk with an actual rule here, and this is going to be applied to everything. So let's say we want everything on the actual page to the left to have a font family, and let's make this a little bigger so we can see that here. So now we're just working with the styles, and you know what, can I put that below there? Yeah, let's put that below. Let's put that down. Get that out of there. Okay, move it here, split it down, have that selected, and good. All right, so we got markup on the top and our styles on the bottom. That might make things a little easier. Okay, so now we want everything selected. So we want everything using the universal selector. So that's going to apply to all of the CSS, all of the actual HTML. We're going to give it a font family of Arial, and then we'll look to the left, and bam, all of the actual elements, all of the HTML elements, if you look at their font, it was actually changed from the browser's default to Arial. And then when I get rid of it, it goes back. I can use times, and notice how Visual Studio Code actually just it auto populates it once you start typing. But let's go with Arial, and we'll press tab, and Helvetica and Sans Serif will be available if Arial is not. And so that covers, that's your universal selector right there. Now we can move down. You know, let's put a comment in there. Let's put a comment. And that comment is going to be universal selector. Universal selector. Okay. All right. And let's go down. Let's go over to a type selector. type selector. All right, so now what we're going to do is let's actually select the H1 and the H2. All right, and how we're going to do that is using the type selector. We're going to use just what's the type? It's an H1, and we're also going to select the H2. All right, now open up our rule and create a declaration. So now our H1 and our H2, all right, which is our heading tags, and if some of this is a little foggy, then you should definitely go back to the bare bones HTML portion of the series. But right now we are selecting the H1 tag and the H2 tag. So just those headings, which is this one here and this one here, and we're going to give those a color. And let's just make those a color of red. And now you notice to our left, our H1 and our H2 is now red using the type selector. All right, if you wanted to add additional things here, you can do comma P, and then that'll make sure that everything else, so the H1, the H2, and the paragraph is red. Okay, but we're not going to do that. We'll get rid of that. You need to know how to be able to select different types of HTML elements. So this is why we are covering the CSS selectors here. Let's move on to the actual class selector. All right, and let's see, do we have a class here? We have a class here, a class of note. So let's go on ahead and use that. We're going to select the actual note by using .note. So when we're working with a class selector, you need to target that with the dot and then the class name. Then here's our rule, and we will say we want that color, the color of the font. And where is that note? It is here. So created by me and everything else that's in there. So let's make that, let's make it purple. Okay, all right, good. So we got created by me, which is now purple, and oh, look at this. Here's a class of note, and here's a class of note. So what happens here is now we have this is purple, and this is actually blue still because it's a link. Let's see what else we have here. An additional line is purple, which is right here. Good. So that works out. So a class, you can have more than one class name to different elements. Of course, IDs are going to be completely uniquely separate. So you're only going to have one ID name itself. So now that is the class selector. What else? I guess we can add a little bit more to that, just so it kind of stands out. We'll go font size is 20 pixels. So looking to the left, you'll see the increase in size. And font weight, let's just make that bold. All right, so now that stands out a little bit more. There we go, good. All right, and so now let's move on. That was the class selector. Let's do another class selector, but what I want you to notice here is it's not just going to be the actual class, it's going to be the element name and the class. So now it's just going to be for all spans. So for all spans that have a class of note, this is a paragraph that has a class of note, so it's not going to affect that. This is just for all spans that have a class of note. Let's change the font size of that to 14 pixels. All right, and so now you'll notice the additional line is smaller. Okay, let's take a look at that again. We'll make a change here. Now it's 44. Now it's 14. Okay, so here we have a class selector here and a class selector here. The difference is this class selector saying, okay, for anything that has a class of note, use this rule. Okay, but this is saying for any span that has a class of note, use this rule. Okay, all right, good. And you know what, just so it stands out just a little bit more, let's add a little color and we'll make that green. Good. So now it's smaller with 14 pixels for the font size, and we are making the color green. All right, so let's move on. That was the actual class selectors. And let's go down to the ID. So let's see, ID selector. Now, where's an ID that we have in our markup that we can select? We have an ID here, and let's see, we have an ID of intro. Okay, so let's go on ahead and let's use that. So in order to target the ID, we are going to use the hashtag and the ID name, which is intro. Then open up the rule. And where is our intro? It's the paragraph. So let's just make it simple. Well, within our declaration, we're going to use the property of border and give that a value of 1px solid and black. There it is. So right there to the left, we have one border around the actual paragraph that has an intro ID. Okay, so that's using your ID selector. Let's move down. Yeah, we're moving along here. So this is good. This is a pretty good pace. What are we going to use here? Child selector. So let's use a child selector. What is that going to be? So child selector is going to be an element that is within a parent element. So an element within an element. And let's see, where do we have an example of that? We have a paragraph tag. There's nothing in there, nothing in there. There's an li within a ul, so we can use that. We also have a paragraph with an actual URL in there. So let's go on ahead, let's use that. So in this case, the A element, the actual URL element, is a child of the paragraph element. Okay, the paragraph is the parent, and the child is the URL that is within. Okay, within what? Within the paragraph. So we're going to use P for the actual parent, and what's within it? It is the URL. Okay, so we're going to use the A tag. So now that we have that, we can say the color is going to be orange. And now what do we have here? So for any A tag that is, let's see here, any A tag that's actually going to be within the paragraph. So that's one here. And we do have another one here. Okay, so this is let's see. Okay, there's the parent. It begins there. This is a child element of P, and this A tag is also a child element, which, let's see here. That's back to the top. What is that blue there? Okay. So that would be this, this, and this. Okay, so that's perfect. That's perfect. So this is a child element, child element, child element. That's perfect. All right, and what else do we got here? What else can we use? So that's perfect. Let's use the Descendant Selector. Let's go on ahead and use that. So the child selector, again, is any element within an actual element. And if we move down to the Descendant Selector, and how many of these are you going to actually use? Most likely you're going to be using the ID selector and the class selector. And the majority of the time you'll also use something like this. You use an element, we'll use an actual element with an actual class associated with it, or we'll just use the actual class names. There's a good chance you'll use the type selectors. Universal selector, you don't usually use that too much, but it's always good to see. So you're definitely going to use ID selector and the child selector a lot. What's missing here though? Did I actually, now I'm just trying to look here. Let's see, Descendant Selector. Let's see here. Oh, yeah, Descendant Selector. Okay. Descendant. If I can spell it right. Descendant Selector. All right, so what is the Descendant Selector going to do? That is going to target any of the elements that is inside a parent element, even if there are other elements nested between them. Okay, so let's see. A good thing to note is that that does not need to be a direct child or anything. So let's see what we can do. Let me just move this. We can select the P and the A and give that a property of border with one px solid and red. Okay, so let's see here. Now for any of the actual A tags that are within the actual paragraph tag is going to actually have a border that is solid and red. All right, so that works out just great. So that's that. Okay, subscribe mail, good. Paragraph and A back to the top, good. And all of these, very good, very good. So that is your Descendant Selector. Good, good. All right, and let's see, adjacent siblings. And again, you're not going to use all of these, but again, it's also good for you to actually see them, because when you're working with someone else, there's a good chance you might see this and you might say to yourself, well, wait a minute, I need to fix that. And how do I go about fixing that? All right, so this is adjacent siblings. All right, so what does that mean, adjacent siblings? So that is going to be anything that is next. Basically, it's going to target the next sibling of another element, but not other elements in this case. So let's see, let's show an actual example. All right, so we have a span here, and in that span, where is that span? Span. Well, we got a span here, so let's do span plus A. All right, and open up the rule, give that a border of 3px solid black. Okay, so here we go, an adjacent sibling. And in this case here, we have our span plus, all right, what is the adjacent sibling to this span? All right, and look at this, adjacent to span element, adjacent to span element. And that means this is the same level of this, but it's not selecting anything else. It's not selecting the additional ones. It's just taking the one that's adjacent to it, the one that's right next to it. Okay, so that is the adjacent sibling. It's not selecting these. Okay, it's selecting the one that's right here. Okay, rarely are you going to see that. Rarely. All right, and a general sibling. We'll move on to the next one. General sibling. I think this general sibling one, this might just wrap it up here. Let's see. Let's also use the span. Okay, and we're going to use, I don't even know. What is it? Tilde. I believe that's a tilde. All right, so tilde, it's right above, it's immediately to the left of the number 1. And you might have to press shift in order to get that. And A. Let's see. Well, not shift and A, but A, we're going to use the URL tag of A. And now let's put a border. All right, so let's see here. Just an issue with the actual computer here, but we are working with a general sibling and we are selecting the actual span. Then we're using the tilde and the URL A. So the A element, which is for the actual links. And what we're going to do, we have the property of border. We're going to add 2 pixels, solid and real. Go with a color of teal. All right, so now what do we have here? Okay, so we have general siblings for the actual spans. And if we look at the actual span here, what are we looking at? Okay, so going up, additional line. Here's your span. This is span says hi there. Good, good, good. And an actual sibling of that is going to be this one here, adjacent to span. Good. So right now we're here, but we're selecting all general siblings of that. So that's going to be the ones that are actually next to it. So right on the, when we're trying to picture the DOM, we're trying to look at a tree here, and these are at the same level here. So we have this span, we have an A, another A, and another A. All right, so 1, 2, and 3. So perfect, perfect. Let me just slide this over a little bit. Good, good, good. So, all right, so that works out perfect. If I were to put in like an A, if you notice back to the top, it's not selected because back to the top, this URL here, this link, this is a child. It is a child of span. All right, and the parent of this here is span. The child here is the actual link. All right, but this right here, it's not within the actual span itself. It's not. It's actually next to it, so it's a sibling. All right, kind of like, all right, this is the brother, and this is the sister, another sister, and another sister. Okay, all right, so they're all next to it, and that is pretty much it for today. All right. Now that was a long-winded series, but you know what? You have to be able to see all of these. You have to be able to select these. When you're dealing with CSS and HTML, and when you're on the job or working for a client, you're gonna have to try to figure out, okay, how do I select everything that I'm working with and give it some type of structure, or give it some type of attribute, or give it some type of values to our properties, and what rule am I coming up with? Why is it that I'm selecting one thing but I'm not selecting others? So this is going to actually help you troubleshoot through that. Okay, if you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. You can subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the notification so you always know exactly when the updated information will be actually given to you. Okay, all right, full stack out.